Assalamu alaikum, hi and welcome to day 7 of Islam, the Past, the Present, the Future series. Today's topic is very interesting and it's very exciting. It's about differentiating between truth and falsehood, so good and evil. So just to give you a bit of background, so far I've done the macro analysis. So taking things from a spiritual realm, what the past and the present and the future entails from an Islamic perspective. Then I brought it from a historical perspective in the physical realm of what it means and what different perspectives people can have. And I tried to narrow down for the youth in particular the narratives that people are giving to justify bloodshed and why they are wrong. Um, and what I want to now do is look, so I've covered the past and I phased into the present in the last session, i.e., what the responses should or should not be. Now I'm going to go into much more of the present and give much more of a guideline on what areas people should be focusing on, and then slowly I will end this series by talking about the future. So when it comes to good, what is good and what is evil, right? Is bloodshed good in Islam according to Islam? What is good according to Islam? What can we use as a benchmark that is explicit, that isn't ambiguous? And so I shared this before and I will share it again because that's how important I think this is. Think this is. This is what I use as my benchmark. This is when I was really confused, this is what I went to. Right? This is a point in the life of the Prophet whereby he was in fear. And his wife made that confusion and fear disappear through faith. And what you see is a list of things that ultimately tell you, or that we can extract from the biography of the Prophet, that stand for good. Okay, so if you ever doubt, if you ever have any doubts on what is good, stick to these things. You will not go wrong. And so this is the first thing. What is good? This is your benchmark. This is what I would recommend. Okay. Now, when it comes to the Quran, again, so those that get despondent, okay, and those that then out of despondency adopt these paths of, bloodshed. The thing is, it's written in the Quran, the thing is, it's a game of patience. It's written, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقل جاء الحق وزهق الباطل إن الباطل كان زهوقا. That when truth is held against falsehood, falsehood perishes. For falsehood by its nature is bound to perish. So I remember Sheikh Mahmood mentioning this. He said that when falsehood adopts truth and truth no longer is being defended, so basically if there's no one actually really sticking by the truth, then falsehood will perish. But when against ultimate truth, falsehood cannot stand. That's a given. Falsehood in its nature is bound to perish. Okay, so the Quran is the truth, and so the shortcoming isn't in the message, like I keep reiterating. The shortcoming is within us. And when we adopt the correct methodology, when we adopt the correct approach, then falsehood will perish. But up until then, do not expect it to. Okay? And what is our other responsibility? I've said be an asset to humanity, add value to society. And also, Professor Slim, this is the verse, so the next verse, this is what he quoted. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. And then the verse goes on that, and if the followers of the book had believed, it would have been better for them. Of them some are believers and most of them are transgressors. And so what is this verse implying? This verse is implying that even in this day and age, okay, even this day and age, not everyone of the book, they're not all evil, right? There are still some good amongst them. So what you can't do is generalize and just go, okay, um, right, we think we know who is and who isn't, and we will just label them all, and we'll do what we like, we'll go for bloodshed. And the other thing is, when you label people, this is the other thing when it comes to sectarianism and labeling, the Prophet mentioned that if you call someone a kafir, then on the day of judgment, one of you is. And so that label is a very strong label. Once you make a statement that someone is a disbeliever, unbeliever, right? Once you have made that claim, then either you become a disbeliever or that person is. And so it's not a small statement to make. And the other thing is we need to, and so the focus needs to be more geared towards faith, and then the Quran mentions that they want to extinguish the light of Allah with their mouths, but Allah refuses except to perfect His light, although the disbelievers dislike it. So here's the thing, who's in charge? Why do you feel like you need to take things into your own hands? And if you want to take things into your own hands, what is the methodology? لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغير ما بأنفسهم. Allah does not change a state of a nation or a group of people until they change what is within themselves. Change yourself, change your household, change your societies and communities. They will lead to change of nations, and then once the nations change, then you'll have a peaceful globe. That's the methodology. The Prophet came, and this is a bit of history, the Arabs were baggage. Okay, they were baggage. The two superpowers, the Persians and the Romans at the time, right? They would literally bypass Arabia because they would see the Arabs and they'd think that why would we even want these guys? Why would we want to take them on? They will slow our progress down. That's how backwards they were. Right? And this is the miracle of the Prophet. The Prophet was sent to the Arabs. And within a number of years, they became the superpower. But what was the process? The Prophet came. The Sahabas joined, the companions then joined him. Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, he believed in him when the rest did not. Then other people, slowly the following grew. But the change began with an individual. Then slowly, and then his wife, Khadija radiallahu anha, she was one of the first adopters. And as Abu Bakr, and then domestic, then socially, social acceptance, and then national acceptance, until when he gave his sermon at Hajj al-Wada, where basically he had become the king of Arabia. And so there is a methodology, and you can't get something from nothing, so don't expect quick fixes. This requires patience. Go to Al-Asr. وَلَسَرْ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Those that believe, those that do good, what is good, explicitly I've already explained. Those that believe, I'll come on to belief and faith and Imaan. And the truth, okay, and the truth is linked to the good, okay, so you can use that as a reference point also. And then be patient. Be patient. And here's the amazing thing. History has a tendency to repeat itself. You know, just on the note of why Arabia was considered to be baggage, you know, the people were so backwards. Like, you had the Arabs at the time, they were burying their daughters alive. So if they had a daughter, they would have said, no, we want a boy, and then they would bury their daughters alive. And there was so much ignorance within the society in the worship of idols, right? And there were two nations. So historically, from what I've gathered from my knowledge of history, is that there are two nations that have been extremely ignorant, extremely backwards. One is the Arabs, right? The other are those of the Indian continent, those that would worship animals or the creation, or idol worshipping. Okay, and you would see these things about burying daughters alive, not having this sense of respect for creation, as in human beings, um, and giving either that. So you'd see polar opposites as well, and this is what Islam came and it eradicated. So the whole purpose of connecting to the Creator, and I'll mention who Allah is Islamically and what conclusions I came up with on my journey, and what is Iman, what is faith, and how that eradicates these ignorant beliefs and how it liberates you. But the point of this diagram is that civilizations historically, one thing has been constant, and that has been change. Right? There's always been rise and falls of civilization, and I mentioned Arnold Toynbee's work, which I will also share with you again today. But the point is this. The point is that we're living in a time and age, as time is going on, the rises and falls are much more frequent. Before, it would take a nation a long time to catch up with the competing civilization or nation. Okay, but now because of technology, improved communication methods, more efficient and effective knowledge transfer methods, the bottleneck, right? The bottleneck is no longer accessibility and availability of knowledge, but rather it's the actual will of individuals within a nation to do something, to acquire it, to understand it, to implement it, to educate themselves and enlighten themselves and others. That's the bottleneck. And so the victory will be of those that are the most resilient, that keep bouncing up after getting knocked down. I.e., it will be the survival of the fittest. And so this is a very exciting time to be, present in. Not a time to be despondent and giving up and adopting paths that are clearly, I've debunked them. They're wrong. Under, I don't know, very, very extreme cases, could they be right? But even then, I mean, I've narrowed it down and I've given you my verdict. It was 2.5%. Even off that 2.5%, when you keep breaking it down, it's like, why would you take that? And so the real problem why people adopt that, the real reason, is simply what Ibn Rushd, so Averroes, known in the West, the great philosopher that was born in Cordoba, as far as I recall, and passed away in Morocco, Marrakesh, 12th century. He said, ignorance leads to fear, Fear leads to hate, and hate leads to violence. This is the equation. Right? Ignorance leads to fear. Fear leads to hate. Hate leads to violence. Bloodshed. This is the equation. An American businessman, William Bernbach, he mentioned something beautiful also. In this very real world, good doesn't drive out evil, evil doesn't drive out good, but the energetic displaces the passive. This is a quote I wish Muslims would reflect on. That in this very world, right, good doesn't drive out evil, evil doesn't drive out good, but the energetic displaces the passive. How many of us sit there and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and how much action do we have? Positive action. And this is the thing, because we don't have any positive action, then when it gets bottled up, then the only action that you take then is you want to go to these battlefields. And the other thing is, Edmund Burke, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil, is that good men do nothing. Right? And so, and the other thing that I want to share, actually, I'm just going to go back, is that I talked about Martin Armstrong, a guy who studies cycles. Okay? History has a tendency to repeat itself. Technically, it does not repeat itself, but history rhymes. Okay? And the rhyme that our present time I'm hearing is of that of the 13th century. In the 13th century when the Mongols were there, and that's the time when Rumi was around. Okay, Rumi's father was an amazing scholar from the Khorasan, Afghanistan area, and they fled from the fear of the Mongols, and they took everything that they had and they settled in Konya, modern day Turkey. And the global you can say climate, or the global emotions at the time were that of fear. Something similar to modern day, the present day and age, for the Muslims. Largely people are living in fear. And the amazing thing about history, what it shows, and especially the 13th century, is that, and when you combine it with science, what it shows is that diamonds, these amazing high performing personalities, these gems, they're only formed under extreme pressures and high temperatures. When the global environment is that of fear and that of darkness, only through darkness comes light. It was the same for the Prophet and his companions. It was a time when there was so much darkness in Arabia because of the practices that were taking place, that the Prophet was a breath of fresh air. Similarly with Rumi. In times when there was so much darkness, there was a man that came. The creator sends Rumi. And the works of Rumi, even till now, I think it was either 2004 or 2008 in the US, they said he was the most famous poet. What? 8 centuries later? 8 centuries later, a man's work is being praised throughout the globe. And so these aren't times to be despondent. You know, the other thing is, the Prophet mentioned something, and this should increase your faith. When the companions asked the Prophet, basically the Prophet said, "Glad tidings be to my brothers," and the companion said, "O Messenger of Allah, are we not your brothers?" And the Prophet said, "No." He said, "You are my companions. My brothers are those that will come at the end times. There will be people that haven't seen me, but yet they will believe in me." And he said, "Glad tidings to those." And there's this argument that the Sahabas, the companions of the Prophet, had it very difficult. It was very difficult. I thought about this subject matter, and I thought, especially when it came to Battle of Badr, when the Sahabas mentioned this, they said, "And the Battle of Badr, when we fought, when there was 313 against, I think it was 10,000, and they defeated such a large number, and they had angelic warriors helping them out, and so they saw bodies flying left, right, and center." And I thought to myself, you know what? They didn't have it hard. They didn't have it hard. They had it easy. I mean, when you're on the battlefield, okay, getting to that point, being intimidated by 10,000 men, but once you're there and the angels are helping you and you're seeing bodies flying, if that doesn't boost your faith, you know, Um, and the point is, someone asked me, isn't that a bit unfair? I think actually it was us that asked me. He said, "Isn't that a bit unfair that in this day and age we don't which witness such things, and therefore our faith isn't as high, and therefore we aren't as good as them, etc., etc." And I said, you know what? The bottom line is the Prophet mentioned that in the end time, glad tidings glad tidings be to my brothers, that we won't have witnessed all this, but yet we will believe. And people might think this is ridiculous. People might think this is a bit out there. People may call us mental. Majnoon, that's what they would call the Prophet. So they might say these guys are a bit off it. But again, this is the concept of Goraba, strangers. Islam began as something strange. It will end as something strange. Glad tidings to the strangers, those that believe. But that does not mean that you take up the route of bloodshed. So the books that I mentioned was Arnold Toynbee, for those that want to read more on that, Civilization and Trials. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf mentions this. There's a chapter in there, Islam, the West and the Future, the concept of Herodianism versus Zealotism. And study, if you really want to win and you really want a revival, study how it's happened in the past. Study the patterns and trends. Try to emulate what works. Why are you trying to emulate something that you don't even know whether it works and there's no evidence for it? It's just that I don't know, some guy says something and you just think, alright, okay, you feel despondent and you just go for it. The Sahabas, as I've illustrated, they weren't emotional beings when it came to these matters. Their emotions and minds were aligned. Not only emotional minds, so there's 4 dimensions: spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical. Once these 4 are in alignment, then you've attained self-mastery. For them, they were on that level. Most of you guys that are listening, and most people, things can change in the future, but the point is, most people that I even know of have not even attained mental mastery, never mind emotional mastery. Emotional intelligence is a subject that has just come to the forefront. I think that Daniel Goleman is the leader in that area, and Harvard Business Review. They've covered it not too long ago. I don't even think it's been 2 decades. So before it comes, and this is Harvard Business Review, okay, the leaders of the leaders in research. So before it gets down to your average Joe, and that's emotional, spiritual mastery, that is way beyond. So, but here's the thing, like I mentioned yesterday, Kaizen, go in the pursuit of knowledge, go in the pursuit of bettering yourself, personal development, learn, seek, but question the past. Like I told you, what happened? What are we doing? What are you doing? Where are we going? Where are you going? Ask yourself these questions. Another thing was, I mentioned freedom. I may have done or I may not have done, I can't recall. But essentially, what research now is showing is regardless of your beliefs and regardless of what backgrounds or what you're composed of, essentially your upbringing, the bottom line is everyone is craving one thing. Every single human being, and that is freedom. Freedom to be who they want, do what they want, okay, live the way they want, spend time with the children the way they want, bring them up the way they want, eat what they want. But attaining freedom, and being physically free, okay, i.e. not having any physical illnesses, being mentally free, being able to have free will, expression, okay, emotional freedom, not having negative emotions attached, cleansing yourself of negative emotions, and spiritually free, negative energies, clearing them, okay? Freedom is what we're all desiring. This is the ultimate motivating driver. This is the conclusions that, the West is coming up with. But guess what? This is something that we always had in our lands in the East. And then when I say Junoon se or Ishq se milti hai azadi, what was this equation? Where did this come from? Junoon is what? Passion. Passion was what I correlated with jihad. But here's the thing. If the ultimate driver is freedom, okay, and you want freedom to do what you want the way you want to live, i.e. on the sunnah, right? And you want to do jihad with it, what's the other part of the equation? Ishq, love. Not with fear, not with hatred, not with force. With love and above. And so this is my message for the Muslims, that we have a long way to go, but the destination may be far, but it does not take many to change. Until you get a mass change. History proves this. Time and time again. But if you want the change, adopt the Sunnah method. Do not create your own methodologies. Look at either your past scholars, look at our work, look at your Eastern philosophy, go back to your works. Your works in the East were much more advanced. Go back to history. If you want to study, go to 1001 Inventions, study the scholars, look at the amazing work that they did. But you know what? Don't just admire the work that they did. Translate it to the present. Emulate them. Be like them. Look at how tolerant they were. Look at this picture. So this is something that Professor Slim actually has in his office. And this is his life's vision, essentially. That people of different creeds, races, no matter which nationality. So there's no nationalism in this. There's no racism in this. There's no, capitalism, communism, and all these ism, imperialism. Yeah, everyone's working together for what? Working out creation, this beautiful universe that we're in, and connecting people to the creator. Bringing people closer to the creator. There's tolerance, there's people of different faiths. This is what you saw in the Golden Ages. Also, they have exhibitions. Go check out an exhibition if you want. Educate your kids. Some of you, but this might not be everyone's cup of tea. I was part of this, but then I came on and set my own Academy of Champions. I'm working with another group now. You might want to do something else. You might want to focus more on spirituality. Go do that. Whatever route you want to adopt, go do it. But be an asset to humanity, add value to society. Don't be a liability and a leech, which most Muslims unfortunately have become. Liabilities and leech. How many are on benefits? You go to even Spain, when I was there, La Rambla, you see all the rundown areas are full of Muslims. The Muslim to conquer Spain, Tariq bin Ziyad, the masjid in Barcelona is in the red light district. That's how low of low you've become. And so these are things that need pondering over. These are the core things that need to be reflected over. Yes, it's tough. Yes, it appears, and it is true. It is true. I will accept that it's tough for Muslims in this day and age. The Prophet prophesies this also. Holding on to your man in the last day and age will be like holding on to coal, hot coal. It will not be easy. Muslims are being discriminated. I'm not going to shy away from the facts. And if you do compromise on your values, beliefs, and core sets, then you are promoted. That also to an extent is true. But guess what? Are we going to sit there and cry over spilt milk, or are you going to do something about it? Become the change you wish to see in this world. And how are you going to do that? Use your Imaan. What tools do you have then? If I've taken off battlefield for you, swords for you, what tools do you have? Faith. Imaan. What is Imaan? Imaan essentially is confidence. Piero Vitali from Ireland 44, the University of Manchester, he's a thought leader. I've mentioned him previously as well, I think multiple times, possibly. He shared this with me, that con means with, fide, fidans, these are derivatives of faith. To trust in or have faith in, rely firmly upon, believe, to share secret with. And so in Christianity they have this doing confessions to the priest. In Islam we do not have that. Our confessions are one and only to the Creator, to Allah, the Nourisher, the Sustainer. And this is why the concept of sheikhs do not exist, and the spears and all that, and confessing to them. Even in the Prophet's time, when people come to confess their sins, the first reaction would be go and ask Allah for forgiveness, not to implement Sharia law straight away, or they pretend like they're not ready. Like there's an example of someone, a couple that committed adultery and wanted to be stoned. They would give them the benefits of the doubt that I think we did not hear that, or maybe you are drunk. Go repent. Umar, he would mention that give your brothers 70 benefits of the doubt. And so, when we derive faith, okay, Iman, confidence, right? You rely on the one creator. Monotheism, Islam is a monotheistic religion. And this is why it's a liberating religion. This is why we don't worship creation. In Islam, there is no worship of creation. We do not worship things, creation. We don't worship the Prophet Muhammad. We don't worship this black house known as the Kaaba that you see. We worship the one source, the one creator, Allah, the Rabb, the Nourisher, the Sustainer. The creator of Adam, the creator of Eve, creator of Noah, creator of Abraham, Moses, David, Solomon, Jesus. And so, if Iman is confidence, where do you derive your confidence from? Some people say their mom and dad, but guess what? And you can derive confidence from different people, but guess what? It's limited in its nature. Because once your mom and dad are no longer there, your faith will be affected. And so what is the correct methodology? Where did the Sahaba, the companions, derive their faith from? What did I come to the conclusion of in my journey? When I was thinking and I was pondering, who is Allah? You know, these verses, and so Allah actually explains. So firstly, to know where to derive faith from, okay, if you're going to derive your faith from your creator, you need to understand your creator. Okay, and you need to understand the book. And so we'll come on to that. So in the Quran, these are one of my favorite passages of the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. Firstly, Allah answers what the Quran is. Allah says that if we sent this Quran upon a mountain, basically the mountains would have crumbled. Why? Because these religious scriptures and texts are no joke. These are pure, utter energy and power. You know, to blow up a mountain, you see it in Saudi Arabia, modern day Saudi Arabia, they have had to put dynamites, explosives. What are explosives and dynamites? Pure, sheer, utter, concentrated energy and power. And the Creator mentions that, and these examples we present to people that perhaps they will give thought. That if we were to reveal this Quran, this book, on top of mountains, they would crumble. So what is the Quran? It's pure, utter fuel, energy, power. And then Allah then goes on to describe Himself. The Creator describes Himself, and this is for those that have. And so this is the beauty of the Quran. You know, the Quran is catered for everyone, and that's why it's not a book of signs. It's a book of signs and science. It's for those of the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. That's the beauty of the book. It's not limited to perspectives. It is perspective-less. It's a function of the perspective of those that are reading or trying to understand it. So limitation is the person trying to understand it, not the book. The book is unlimited. And so, for those that use the right hemisphere, creativity, the philosophers, those that theologians, those that want to study spirituality, the Creator describes Himself. So never before in history, in religions, as far as my little knowledge goes, the Creator explicitly describe His characteristics. In Islam, as far as my little knowledge goes, for the first time He describes His beautiful characteristics in a confined manner, which are known as Asmaul Husna, the 99 beautiful names and attributes, which I'll come on to on the next slide. But in the Quran, He mentions His attributes. That He's the entirely merciful, the specially merciful. There's no deity. He's the sovereign, the pure, the perfection, the bestower of faith. The bestower of faith. Again, faith, where does it come from? He gives faith. He gives confidence. For those that seek confidence. He's the overseer. He's the exalted in might. The compeller, the superior. Right? The fashioner. Basically, to Him belong the best names. Whatever is in the heavens and the earth is exalting Him. So everything is vibrating to Him. For those my bioenergetic friends, all the frequencies, everything is vibrating to the one source. Everything is praising Him. All creation praises the Creator. And this is the other thing. When it comes to the Creator, there is no good and evil. And this is a concept people might struggle with. Allah is neither good and neither is Allah bad. Evil and good, this is Zoroastrian belief of a good God and a bad God, right? But guess what? Allah is the creator. Good and bad, good and evil are concepts within creation. The Creator is independent of the creation. I hope that makes sense. Within creation, you've got the concepts of good and evil. The Creator is what He has described Himself to be. What has the Creator described Himself to be? His beautiful names, His best names. These are 99 names. When you add them up, right? When you add these names up, these are the core characteristics. Well, these are all the core characteristics. This is what the Creator has chosen to explicitly describe Himself as. So for those that are philosophical, so let me explain this. How do you derive your faith from these attributes? And how do you get closer to the Creator through these attributes? How do you boost your Imaan? What is the correct methodology in my opinion? There are other methodologies as well that you can use that are also correct, but I believe this is the most optimal methodology. It's the most optimum. This is the best in my opinion. Or the least way of going wrong. The most bullet or foolproof you can say, right? And this is the thing. Let me share a few examples with you. In Pakistan, a lot of people fear, so they work in sectors that are technically not permissible in Islam. Okay, they fear, and I've mentioned this in one of the past days also, recordings as sessions. They fear the loss of their jobs. But one of the characteristics Don't know if I can zoom in. Nope, I cannot zoom in. Maybe nope, I can't. But one of the characteristics you might be able to see is Ar-Razzaq. Okay, which is Allah is the giver of, Allah is the provider. Okay. Now, if you take the creator to be the provider, then you should not fear, then you should have faith in the creator to provide. You should not fear not being provided for. Okay? And so that limiting false belief should be eradicated using this. If your fear is you're doing something standing for the truth and you might be killed in the process, again, you need to go back to this. It's written, Allah is Muhyi, Allah is Mumit. He's the giver of life, and He's the giver of death. No one can kill you unless, this is your faith, that unless Allah wants it to. And no one can be brought to life unless Allah wanted to. Or Allah wants to. Allah is Muhyi al-Mumit, and no one can therefore kill you if He wants you to live. If He wants you to survive, no one can kill you. Other thing, in society, in Pakistan and other places as well, we fear what other people might think. That maybe, and this is where confidence also comes in, lack of self-esteem. That a fear of success, or fear of rejection. And the bottom line is, this is, again, that can be eradicated from this source also. Allah is Mu'izz, He's the giver of honor, and Allah is Mudhil, He's the giver of dishonor. And also Allah is Al-Mu'min, He's the giver of faith. And He's Al-Muhaymin, He's the guardian. He's Al-Aziz, He's the mighty. And this is the point. So when we talk about the one source and we say Allahu Akbar, it's essentially power equals infinity. And if power equals infinity is just a relative thing that I'm saying, right? Just to explain a concept, that's why we say Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar is the bottom line. That is the greatest. If there's anything even greater than power equals infinity, He is that then. But it's just a concept. These are concepts that I'm trying to explain. That's why we say Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest, right? And then these are the attributes of the one source, of the nourisher, the sustainer. You use these attributes. So, for example, Allah is Al-Wudud, He's the all-loving. And so you can build your faith, and this is your source. This should be your benchmark. Okay? You can go through others, so there are other avenues as well, like what, for example? Like, for example, eliminating your fears. By eliminating your fears, by default, fear and faith are two sides of the same coin. You eliminate your fears, your faith will increase. You increase your faith, your fears disappear. You can do it that way too. But this is something that I came across, and this is what I share with people, because I try to use my own method, the methodology that I basically adopted, which is I use the Quran as my decisive text, and then basically the authentic hadith, and use them as my benchmarks. But it's not that I haven't used other methods, I have also, right? But after going through the whole cycle and circle, I've come to the conclusion that this is the ultimate way. This is the most optimal way. This is a foolproof way. And so anyway, what I've realized is by bringing your belief in these attributes, okay, by strengthening your belief in these attributes about the one source, and I've written Allah, it's all dash Allah, right? And this is for the West and the non-Muslims. The day the penny drops and you realize this phenomenon of this universe, right? And this is for those that believe in the universalism concept and all this. The day you actually realize this about Islam and the Creator, right? I can guarantee you your lives will change. And so one of the things is you can reflect on these attributes on the creator of the creator. What is the creator? What are his and this is for more that are right hemisphere orientated, right? And so what these will do is help to liberate you and free you of your limiting beliefs, and they will actually liberate your soul. And this was the thing about freedom. The companions, why did so many people end up coming to? Initially, the resistance was high, but once people saw people becoming their souls becoming liberated, they saw Islam being a freedom movement. And this is the funny thing. Freedom fighters and terrorists, they say that there's a fine line between them, right? And this is the correct methodology of freedom fighters. It's about liberating your souls at a spiritual level, not physical, right? And they saw these people as free people, liberated people, okay? And these core beliefs connect you to the one source. And so, like I mentioned, so if everyone's born on fitra and they grow up, and then after the age of puberty they come off fitra, so everyone's born in Muslim. So when do they unbecome a Muslim is a question. And the question, and my opinion is, as soon as they violate these 99 names, you violate any of these 99 names, you go to what's known as shirk. It leads to the breakdown of nur, light from the one source. It's like spiritual death. So, for example, if you say Allah is a cow, Nauzubillah, as an example, so basically, for those that believe that do idol worship or put creation, they worship creation rather than the one creator, which is independent of creation, because he's the creator. The creator is the creator. The rest is creation. Okay, when you attribute things to the creator, to Allah, the nourisher, the sustainer, that's when you experience spiritual death. But here's the thing, and this is the story that I shared with Pharaoh as well. Repentance, doing it out of ignorance, and as soon as you repent, reignites the spark, and it reestablishes the flow with the one source. And that's why they say when a non-Muslim accepts Islam, okay, he's called a revert. And not only that, it's as though he was just born again. He's a born again Muslim. When you do Hajj, what happens? Your sins are taken. For those that the Hajj is accepted, it's as though you're born again. The spark is reestablished. You repent at Hajj and reignites the spark. And so the other question, and I don't go into deep spirituality, and I won't go into deep spirituality because it is, as the word implies, as I'm saying, it's deep stuff. And it's something I really only teach to those that have been through the Academy of Champion process, that have a high level of self-awareness, that have a high level of self-discipline, both which require a high level of reflection and understanding. But in that we mentioned, so basically your soul is, so Allah is an-nur, Allah is the source of light, your soul is basically a source of light. But your soul can only sustain if the one source provides you the light. So everything is from the one source. So what is my evidence for saying Allah is nur, light? Allah says himself in the Quran, and this is where, so Allah, the Quran is beautiful. And so is the author of the Quran. He is the all-knowing, he's Al-Alim. And so in the Quran, he's given the answer those that are seeking it through philosophy. But guess what? Also for those that use the logic in left hemisphere, scientists. And here's his answer. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله نور السماوات والأرض مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح المصباح في زجاجة الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نار نور على نور يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله على كل شيء عليم. It's one of my favorite verses also, and this is from Surah An-Nur. So for those of you that like to use logic, okay, rationale, the creators also responded. Go fathom this one. And I actually break this down and I teach this. How this is literally true. Scientifically I explain this. And Allah says, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The example of His light is like a niche within which is a lamp. The lamp is within glass. The glass as if it were a pearly white star lit from the oil of a blessed olive tree, neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil would almost glow even if untouched by fire, light upon light, nurun ala nur. I wonder where Einstein's equation E equals mc squared came from. Allah guides to His light whom He pleases. And Allah presents examples for the people, and Allah is knowing of all things. And I won't go into the science, and if those are the scientists, the ones who learn this scientifically, join the Academy of Champions, because here's the problem with scientists of this day and age. Curse of knowledge, founder's disease, too much ego. Knowledge cannot be acquired through these characteristics. Humility is needed. And the other thing is, that's the first message. And if you're able to decipher, debunk this yourself, understand this scientifically, please go ahead. It's very straightforward. For those who Allah guides to Him light whom He pleases. Yahdillahu li nurihi man yasha. Now let me come on to the Muslims. Allah guides to His light whom He pleases, whom He wills. What I have shown you is something I mentioned in the previous series, one of the days. In this series in the previous days. Nur is a light, but it's actually a reflection. There are multiple ways, multiple paths. Why does everyone think that they are only on the right path and everybody else is either kafir or munafiq and a hypocrite and basically an unbeliever and everything, and they justify bloodshed? Because when it comes to light and guidance, it's a spectrum. And because it's a spectrum, you don't even know whether that guidance is referring to just specifically Muslims or non-Muslims. Because Allah guides to His light whom He pleases. Who are you to make the call? And so this is just an illustration. I don't want people that don't understand what I'm doing, please ignore. Okay, but for those of you that understand, I hope you share it with others. And those of you that want to know even more and are really intrigued by it, then join the Academy of Champions. What else do we know about Allah? The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that Allah the Most High said that I am. This is a law of attraction. Okay, Rumi said what you seek is seeking you. The Prophet also mentioned this. I think this is Hadith al-Qudsi. Hadith al-Qudsi is basically. So we have Hadith basically sayings and actions of Prophet that are recorded. Hadith al-Qudsi is basically a saying that's come directly from the Creator, that was given to the Prophet, and the Prophet then passed that on, which wasn't in the Quran, but it's regarded as one of the highest ranked of narrations, Hadith al-Qudsi. Okay, and so what does the Creator mention? Allah the Most High said, I am as my servant thinks, or expects I am. I am with him when he mentions me. If he mentions me to himself, I mention him to myself. And if he mentions me in an assembly, I mention him in an assembly greater than it, i.e. with the angels. If he draws near to me a hand's length, I draw near to him an arm's length. And if he comes to me walking, I go to him at speed, or in some places they say Allah comes running. And you know, it's also said that Allah is closer to a person than his own jugular vein. Now we're going into quantum physics. This is exciting stuff. This is the area I love. Mapping history, science, philosophy, spirituality is no easy task. This is the route that I opted for. And so what else is science saying, and what else are we knowing in this 21st century, 20th and 21st century? Remember, Prophet said that the understanding passed the message on, so that those to come after would know it better than those that got it before them. What are we getting to know? Prayer. Okay, so Dr. Misuru Emoto's work. So these Kafirs, Buddhists, according to some Muslims, before the Buddhists prayed on the dam, the prayer was offered. So this diagram on the left, okay. Then they offered prayer, dua, okay, sending positive energy, vibes, whatever you want to call it, for the bioenergetic guys, new age movement guys, right? Essentially, what happened was the crystal changed. Your human body is what? Some people say 60, some people say 70, 80% water. Interesting. Don't drink water for what, 2-3 days, you die? Interesting. What did I mention about illnesses? Trap negative emotions? Just bear that in mind. Prayer remotely done. Okay, so this is done from a distance. Okay, the water was this. They did it and the crystal changed. And what did they send? They sent chi, so energy. Or in the Hindu, those that are listening from a Hindu background, prana, chi from Chinese, energy modern day and age. After chi of love was sent remotely by 500 people, the crystal changed. Music, heavy metal songs, the wrong frequencies being put into music, wrong type of music. This is what happens. Distorts you from fitra. Music can bring you back to fitra. And I use can or could. What is the so what evidences do I have? Modern day, so one is from the Prophet's time when they're into Medina, okay. After that, to Rumi's time. After that, even in Golden Age, even in modern day times, so Sheikh Hamza Yusuf mentions, you've got some Yusuf doing amazing stuff, right? And Sheikh Hamza Yusuf distinguishes this, um, who has a sanad. Professor Slim spending time with him also, he was of the opinion that technology, like I mentioned in the past, like cameras, music, all this innovation, it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. It's the ulama's job to decipher and distinguish the two. Positive emotions, not saying bad words. Ultimate leadership advice of the Prophet was what? And this is what I share in the Academy of Champions. Ultimate leadership advice, period, is speak good or stay silent. This is the ultimate leadership advice. This is the ultimate way of reaching taqwa. This is the ultimate way of also increasing your iman. Negative stuff, you discuss me, or when you even to your kids, the stuff that you say to your kids and the stuff that your kids see. So in terms of senses, what do you have? You hear things, you see things, you touch things, you smell things. You've got brainwaves also, you think, right? And these things, essentially frequencies, right, have an impact. They get absorbed into the child's sponges, which are the cells. Everything must transfer through the heart. And this is where things get really deep. And this is where those that have eyes that can see, those that Allah's given heart that can understand, that have ears that can hear, that don't have eyes that can't see, hearts that are blind. Those that can see then are able to go into that depth and explain things. And so, a key thing to take away from this side: love and gratitude, shukr, ishq, love. Look at the crystal, isn't it beautiful? Saying someone you are a fool, or fear, or hatred. Rather, again, a thank you. Allah says that those that do not thank people, creation, then they don't thank me. So they don't thank Allah. So look at what gratitude does. Being grateful to creators is one thing, but being grateful to others, showing your value and appreciation to others, has an impact on you. Isn't this an amazing universe that we live in? What you think you're doing for others, you're actually doing for yourself. What you think you're doing for the creator, you're doing for yourself. Well, the Prophet mentioned, ask for the best in this world and in the best of hereafter. Isn't it amazing? Positive values and principles, truth and wisdom. Look at the crystal of truth. This is why when Malcolm X, when Sheikh Imran Hussein read his janazah, and he mentioned that he saw so much light coming out of his body, I wonder why. Maybe it had to do with nur, light, and maybe it had to do with something in our bodies. Maybe we have some water in our bodies to the left, maybe some blood, and maybe it has to do with crystals. Maybe it has to do with the light coming out of crystals. Maybe. Or maybe Dr. Misuro Imoto's research is all fabricated, and maybe all the other other doctors, apart from those approved by the FDA and the GMCs, etc., they're all right, and the pharmaceutical industry, they're all right. The rest are wrong. But look at the crystal for wisdom. And I'll end it here for the Muslims. When my family, well, my distant relative in Birmingham mentioned my great great grandfather Nizamuddin Aulia, and he mentioned that he would have light coming out of him, and when they would touch him, it was as though he was electric. I share this in the background. Again, I never understood until when? Until I came across this research. Why was light coming out of him? Could it be he was vibrating at peace? He was at peace? He had Islam in him? Through in Islam at a DNA, at a cellular level? Every nucleic acid, every lipid, carbohydrate, every protein, all the water was Islam? Could it be? And Zamzam water, again, miraculous. Look, dual crystals, theory of duality. What do we know about Zamzam? Whatever intentions you make, it mirrors the same thing. And so I'll end from one of the most beautiful chapters, and something that's repeated in that chapter, Surah Ar-Rahman. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which of your Lord's blessings will you jinn and man deny? And so I will end it there, and tomorrow's session essentially will be on taqwa. So this concept of getting consciousness of the Creator, and some really exciting stuff. I'm really excited. I mean, we're almost at the end of Ramadan, and I'm really excited. 3 more sessions to go, and I look forward to interacting with you guys and finishing this series off. And I hope you're enjoying this stuff. I apologize, today's session was a bit slow. Things were a bit scheduled, and I had to reschedule.